This is a Brooklyn News special report.
There we go. The audio is up. And it is so good to be with you. We are coming on the air at this hour with breaking news as we are learning sources are reporting that the Senate has come to reach a deal, both Republicans and Democrat, on the quote, sweeter kind of continuing resolution to end this government shutdown. Moments ago, Senator John Thune was speaking and is allowing Republicans to speak. We want to give everyone their time to speak on this. We are going to trust. We're going to talk about what's in this new continuing resolution. If you guys will just give us just a moment. We are now in day 40 of the government shutdown. Also, something to note. Let's take you over to the Senate floor where senators
on us and the legislative
currently speaking. Let's listen in. This is
package, which originally passed the Senate on August 1st with overwhelming bipartisan support. 87 votes in two cases, 81 in another, will support our veterans, our troops, our farmers, and rural communities. Of note, this package will provide full-year funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as SNAP, and the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children, known as WIC. One of the most unfortunate and shameful consequences of the shutdown has been that these vital nutrition programs were in jeopardy for our most vulnerable families, including 170,000 Mainers who rely on the SNAP program. Other programs will be funded through January 30th, while the Senate and House continue our work on the remainder of the year-long appropriations bills. For example, funding for important programs like Head Start, and such as the Low-Income Heating Assistance Program will now be restored. I look forward to voting for this legislation and ending the unnecessary harm to the security of our families and our nations. We must begin to act tonight. We must not delay any longer. Finally, Mr. President, I want to thank the many members on both sides of the aisle of the Appropriations Committee and the Senate leadership who have worked especially hard to bring this package together. And I would be remiss if I did not also thank our staff. My staff missed an entire night's sleep to get this package together and get the job done. Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I want to particularly thank the members of the Appropriations Committee, including the three who served as the subcommittee chairs, Senator Boozman, Senator Hoeven, and Senator Mullen. I want to thank Senator Britt, who did an extraordinary amount of work.
Okay, you were listening there to Senator Susan Collins, the Republican from Maine, there speaking on what she calls this new kind of bipartisan continuing resolution, which is what we also are learning that this is something that some things have changed, allowing Democrats to have favor of this. We're going to hear from a few more Republicans. Then we'll hear from Senator John Thune, who is the majority leader in the Senate. As again, the senators are speaking right now before the expected vote to end the longest ever government shutdown. We do know that the minority leader in the Senate, Senator Chuck Schumer, is expected to vote not in favor. Let's go to the independent from Vermont, Senator Bernie Sanders, now speaking on the Senate floor.
I think it is important that the American people fully understand what is being voted on today. Everybody in America knows that our current healthcare system is broken, it is dysfunctional, it is cruel, it is by far the most expensive healthcare system in the world, and the only healthcare system of any major country that does not guarantee healthcare to all people as a human right. covering every man, woman, and child. We are unique in that respect. And yet tonight, what this Senate is about to do is make a horrific situation even worse. So let's be clear what this vote is about. If this vote succeeds, over 20 million Americans are going to see at least a doubling in their premiums in the Affordable Care Act. In my state of Vermont and throughout this country, for certain groups of people, it will be a tripling and a quadrupling of their premiums. There are people who will now be paying 50% of their limited incomes for health care. Does anybody in the world think that makes sense? And if this resolution is passed tonight, we are on a pathway to throw 15 million Americans off of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. 15 million. Our job is to create universal health care, guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child, not throw 15 million people off the health care they have, low-income and working-class people. And my friends, know what you are voting on. Studies are out there that when you throw 15 million people off of health care, some 50,000 of our fellow Americans will die unnecessarily every single year. Anyone think that's funny? Something to laugh at? Something to just go past? I don't. 50,000 Americans die unnecessarily. Now, I know as part of this resolution that the majority leader is going to say, well, Democrats can put together their own bill, and it'll come to the floor here in the Senate for a vote. As everybody here knows, that is a totally meaningless gesture. You can get 100 votes here in the Senate. Won't mean anything because the House is not going to take it up, and the President of the United States certainly will not sign it. So, Mr. President, I hope that anybody here who is thinking of voting for this reconsiders, goes back home and talks to their constituents and asks them what it will mean if their health care premiums are doubled or tripled. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Democratic leader.
Mr. President.
Okay, Senator Bernie Sanders there making the argument making an argument that people, you should not vote for this, that it is not a good thing for health care. We are now going to tune in, though, to Senator Chuck Schumer, who is the minority leader in the Senate, someone who we're learning, according to Political, is a no on this vote. Let's listen in.
Are going to suffer immensely as this health care crisis gets worse. Democrats have been fighting to end this crisis over and over again. Democrats have wanted to lower costs, but Republicans fought us every step of the way. We gave Republicans not one, not two, but 3 chances this year to extend the ACA premium tax credits. Republicans said no every time. On Friday, we offered Republicans a compromise, a proposal that would extend the ACA tax credits for a year and open up the government at the same time. They once again said no. And when they said no on our compromise, they showed that they are against any health care reform. Instead, they passed the biggest health care cuts in our nation's history just to give tax breaks to billionaires. And even then, they weren't satisfied with merely closing hospitals and community health clinics. They callously did nothing to deal with the looming crisis of ACA credits. Premiums will spike by thousands of dollars a month. Millions will lose insurance. Democrats have sounded the alarm. We have demanded for months to meet with the Republican leadership. But Republican leaders refuse to even discuss the issue, let alone negotiate it. We've asked them to meet in the summer and throughout the shutdown. To this day, Republicans still say no. We asked President Trump to step in and meet with us to deliver lower health care for Americans, and instead, Donald Trump has taken the American people hostage, from cutting off food aid to hungry families and vets and seniors and kids, to manufacturing flight cancellations, to cutting off home heating aid, while he builds a billion-dollar ballroom with gold-plated toilets. Therefore, I must vote no. This health care crisis is so severe, so urgent, so devastating for families back home that I cannot in good faith support this CR that fails to address the health care crisis. But let me be clear, however this vote turns out, this fight will and must continue. Democrats must fight because of millions of families will lose health care coverage. We must fight because children who are dying of cancer will not get health care coverage. We must fight because a senior citizen cannot afford to pay $25,000 a year just for health insurance. We must fight to keep millions from financial ruin. And make no mistake about it, the American people know who is inflicting this health care trauma on them: Donald Trump and the Republicans. Americans will remember Republican intransigence every time they make a sky-high payment on health insurance. So we are going to fight legislatively, fight back home, fight in the courts, and bring this fight in the elections. Health care costs made a major impact on the 2025 election, and they will certainly have an even greater impact on the 2026 election. So in conclusion, the contrast between the two parties is crystal clear. Republicans are the party hell-bent on taking people's health care away, all to bow to the billionaire elite and special interests. Democrats are united as the party of lower health care costs and improving our health care system. We will not give up this fight. We will deliver for the American people. I yield the floor.
Chuck Schumer there essentially making the argument that Democrats is the party for health care and Republicans are the party for supporting billionaires, not those the most in need of health care. That is the argument Chuck Schumer making there. Also confirming Politico's reporting that he is a no vote. Let's listen into the majority leader, the Republican from, I should say Republican John Thune, who is the majority leader in the Senate. Let's listen in.
That our staffs have been working without pay for a full 40 days now. All of us, Republicans and Democrats who support this bill, know that the time to act is now. And so in just a few minutes, I will call up the vehicle for a clean continuing resolution packaged with 3 bipartisan year-long appropriations bills: agricultural appropriations, military construction, VA appropriations, and legislative branch appropriations. These bills will fund SNAP for the entire fiscal year. They will fund WIC for the entire fiscal year. And they will fund our veterans for the entire fiscal year. After 40 days of uncertainty, I'm profoundly glad to be able to announce that nutrition programs, our veterans, and other critical priorities will have their full-year funding. And my goal is to quickly move to other full-year appropriations bills. As I've said many times, I firmly believe that the way to fund the government is by passing appropriations bills through regular order, a process that gives senators from both parties the fullest chance to make their voices heard. Mr. President, I also want to mention health care. There's been a lot of talk over the last several weeks on both sides of the aisle about the health care crisis in this country. And I'm thankful to be able to say that we have senators, both Democrat and Republican, who are eager to get to work to address that crisis in a bipartisan way. These senators are not interested in political games. They're interested in finding real ways to address health care costs for American families. We also have a president who is willing to sit down and get to work on this issue. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what solutions might be brought forward. Regardless, as I have said for weeks to my Democrat friends, I will schedule a vote on their proposal, and I've committed to having that vote no later than the second week in December. Mr. President, again, I am optimistic that after almost 6 weeks of this shutdown, we'll finally be able to end it. I will call up that bill in a matter of minutes, and I look forward to passing the clean continuing resolution and appropriations bill package in the very near future. Now, Mr. President, I move to proceed to the motion to reconsider the cloture vote on October 16th on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371.
The question's on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Others no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Mr. President, I move to reconsider the cloture vote on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371.
The question's on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion's agreed to. The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the motion to proceed to Calendar 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes.
Under the previous order, the mandatory quorum call under Rule 22 has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes, shall be brought to a close upon reconsideration? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks. Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Banks. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Thank you. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Rochester. Mr. Booker.
Okay, so we were going to attempt with our new graphic that we were going to implement to watch the vote. You see it there on the screen, but it appears that that is not going to be a thing that we are able to do. So instead of listening again, because it's going to be a little bit boring, we will talk about what is kind of occurring here. So you're watching kind of a rare late night Sunday. It's 8:29 on the East Coast, 7:30 now here Central Time. Senators are voting to end the longest ever government shutdown with this kind of new continuing resolution, kind of a bill that some Democrats are agreeing on. We'll listen in here to the roll call a little bit to see if it will pass, kind of where it goes. I'm going to keep the audio.
Ms. Collins.
Let me do this. Let me change something really quickly because I'm just having issues being able to hear. So we'll do this. Now, I'm only able to hear it. You guys can't, so I'll hear when the vote comes to an end. Senators to watch for, Rand Paul. That's going to be at the end of the role that she is currently hauling. That is Senator Rand Paul. I want to note, we'll take a quick little break here to talk about the House, because this is a new continuing resolution, meaning it also has to pass the House. Similar to the Senate, the minority leader is saying there now. Okay, let's take a look. This is Representative Hakeem Jeffries on the continuing resolution. Him earlier tonight at about 5:36 Central. He says, quote, America is far too expensive. We will not support spending legislation advanced by Senate Republicans that fails to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. We will fight the GOP bill in the House of Representatives where Mike Johnson will be compelled to end the 7-week Republican taxpayer-funded vacation. That is the direct quote there from Hakeem Jeffries. To note, the House has been in recess for now 6, maybe 7 weeks. It might be at 7 weeks. He says 7 weeks, so we'll take his word for it here. After they pass the original continuing resolution, now there's a new continuing resolution, possibly going to pass in the Senate. We'll see here. We'll see here. Possibly going to pass in the Senate. We're watching for that part. We're also getting a quote from another senator. Let me find it. Here we go. This is Ruben Gallego also in the House. He says, quote, I'm voting no on the CR. I have been clear from the beginning. I will not turn my back on the 24 million Americans who will see their premiums more than double if we don't extend these tax credits at a time when prices are already too high. Americans are shopping for health insurance and experiencing such sticker shock that they are being forced to sign up for a crappy, overpriced plan or not signing up for insurance at all. That is Ruben Gallego in the House. He's a Democrat from Arizona. So we're going to have to watch for these certain peoples. Noting in the Senate, they voted 14 times on the continuing resolution, the original continuing resolution, not this new one. The last continuing resolution, again, as we were saying, Angus King, the independent from Maine, Catherine Cortez, John Fetterman, and yeah, those are the three independents and Democrats that voted in favor of this continuing resolution. Now, according to sources reporting that the Republicans are essentially believing they have enough Democratic votes to get past this. Let's go to an idea that was proposed before all this. It was an idea that, okay, maybe we'll see maybe we would see President Donald Trump had asked for Republicans there. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback in my ear there. Sorry about that. For Republicans to essentially overturn the filibuster, which is what is stopping this bill, because they need at least 9 Democrats to vote in favor of the continuing resolution. They had 3, so that makes 9, 8, 7, 6. Doing quick math on my finger, 6 more Democrats needed. Now they say they have it on this new continuing resolution, but again, President Donald Trump saying Republicans should overturn the filibuster. We'll see where that was kind of a notion that was rejected simply because, if you remember, I don't know, it might have been Mike Johnson or someone in the Senate. It kind of saying, well, when Democrats take over, possibly in 2026 during the midterms, they might use that to their advantage. So that was something that Republicans kind of rejected, saying, well, we're not going to do that simply because that's just something we can't do to ourselves, because later they might be faced with the consequences that Democrats are currently being faced with if that was to have been passed. So we're going to see where this new one goes, this new continuing resolution. If the sources reporting are correct, the Republicans saying that they have enough votes to make it pass this and reopen the government. Democrats, as I was just noting, Senator Chuck Schumer saying no, the independent from Vermont, Bernie Sanders saying no, he caucuses with Democrats. Clearly, there's Democratic division within all of this as well. So we're watching for key Democrats. I'm going to turn. Okay, so the clerk there was just noting a number. I'm going to kind of keep the audio kind of mildly turned up just so we can all hear it, but Rand Paul did not vote yet, so we're waiting. I mean, you can see there's not a lot of people on the Senate floor, so they're kind of coming in, voting, leaving, coming in, voting. You see we have a rough estimate: yay 41, nay 41, nay 15. We will put up our counter as well, so it's kind of easier to see here. No. There's our counter on the screen. I'll try to keep this updated. Of course, this is a kind of unofficial count. We're doing this, and let me put that actually right here. Unofficial count. Wow, I'm clicking the wrong button here. Sorry. Putting up some different things. This is an unofficial count of the vote here. 41 to 16, as again, we are continuing to watch the Senate here vote on this continuing resolution, where it goes. Unclear. To note, something that Democrats wanted, and this is the main reason they were saying no to the original continuing resolution. They wanted the Obamacare subsidies to be extended. Something Republicans were not saying yes to. They were like, no, we're not doing that in any way. Then in this continuing resolution, that is also not in there. But to note the Republican idea, the Republican notion towards going forward was, hey, Democrats, you guys pass this, then we will discuss the Obamacare subsidies that were going to run out, essentially, and cause insurance premiums to go higher, and that is currently what consumers are seeing. So we're watching for them. I see Senator Ted Cruz there on the floor, a few other senators as well, watching here to see where this goes. There's Tim Kaine, I believe, if my eyes are
Mr.
seeing
Merkley.
correctly.
No.
No vote there. Kind of waiting for the tally to come in. Only 60 votes in, so still 40 people left to vote. As again, we continue to watch this. 42 to 18 is that current unofficial tally. Let's take you to a wide view of Capitol Hill where we're watching for these votes to occur. Kind of where things are going to go next in this continuing resolution. Senator Rand Paul, don't believe he has voted yet. He's the Republican from Kentucky. He's voted no on these past continuing resolutions and bills that go against his state's hemp industry. Sources saying, again, there's likely enough Democratic support to get behind all of this. We're now at 62 people have voted. So we're going to watch it all play out to the next little bit. What we're going to do here, as you again taking a wider look at Capitol Hill, because noting this does have to go back to the, this has to go back to the House of Representatives after this is passed, because this is a different bill than we have seen in prior. Another no vote in this is a different bill than the Senate has voted on prior, so that's got to be something to watch in the next little bit. Again, senators voting to end the longest ever government shutdown, 21 to 42, that current vote as we continue to monitor it. We are going to watch it all play out. President Donald Trump, I believe he spoke a little bit earlier about the shutdown. Let me see if we're able to get that pulled up, because I know...
Mr. Van Hollen, no. Ms. Hassan, aye.
Okay, we have President Donald Trump from earlier at Joint Base Andrews addressing the press. He didn't speak much about the government shutdown, rather just, I won't say what he said because it was a very short comment, and if I said it, it would just be saying what he said, essentially, is what I'm saying, going there. Let's cut now to this again, is President Donald Trump earlier at Joint Base Andrews.
Mr. Crapo, aye.
Now, I'm a little bit late. I just want to say, was that the greatest flyover ever? Nobody's ever done a flyover like that. So these are the best pilots in the world. They say whoever flies Air Force One, the best pilots. And we just saw that. That was great. So we're going to have a good game. Things are going along very well. Country's doing well. The Democrats have to open it up. Thank you very much, everybody.
Very short comments there from President Trump saying essentially Democrats have to open it up. That is his message there. Democrats have to open it up. That's literally what his only comment on this, I believe, so far today. I can check Truth Social to see if he has weighed in at any other point in time. No, looks like the latest posted from about 3 hours ago, him posting that flyover on Air Force One.
Mr.
That
Gallego,
flyover.
no.
Which is what he was commenting on there, saying it was the
Schiff,
best
no.
flyover ever. That's the message that we are now getting in on this. All we are going
Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye.
wrong. Okay, so again, this vote is going to take a little bit of time. Excuse me here, I'm just looking at the other networks. Seeing what they are reporting on anything new that I am missing simply because I can't. I'm looking at all the news sources that I can, but I'm not looking at everything at every second. So, why don't we I'm trying to see. Doesn't look like we've had anything from President Donald Trump. Simply just saying Democrats need to open it up. That's the comment that we're getting. Speaking of the flyover,
Aye.
that was a few moments ago. So we're going to be watching this.
Mr. Justice, aye. Ms. Cortez Masto, aye. Mrs. Shaheen, aye.
Cortez Masto, which is Catherine Cortez. She voting in favor of this. That was something that we were talking about earlier. She's one of those that has voted in favor of these past bills now multiple times. The past continuing resolution that the Senate has taken
Mr.
up.
Lujan,
Again, she's voting in
No.
favor of this. Let me
Mr. Heinrich, no.
There we go. 50 to 26, 49 to 26, excuse me. Getting that vote correct there. Again, that's an unofficial count here. We're trying our best to keep up with everything, but as we reach day 40 of this government shutdown, the impacts being faced include air traffic controllers and federal workers not being paid, SNAP benefits, anyone on any type of governmental assistance program likely not receiving that refill on your just speaking of SNAP, often referred to as food stamps, not receiving that refill on your card this month. Some states were I mean, there's a big talk about this. I mean, some states were going to fund it. Now the USDA says only partially fund it because the government isn't actually going to go back and fully fund it. So I don't know if this is going to make sense to you guys. I'm going to try to explain this here, but essentially the government was going to partially fund it, and then some states, some Democratic states mostly, were going to find funds to fund kind of the rest of it. They were going to government partially, so were some states, and I believe it might have included Arkansas. I can't remember if the
Ms.
reporting
Smith.
was
No.
that Governor Sanders gave money to food assistance programs, not like SNAP, but rather like food banks, in support of kind of what they were going to see, the visitors, the people they were going to see
Ms. Rosen,
rising
aye.
here. So we're gonna have to see where that goes. I'm sorry, let me fact check myself here. Just to see here, I couldn't remember the reporting. Yes, she directed $500,000 in state funds to the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance to help food banks. There we go. Provide assistance as SNAP benefits were set to stop. So again, that was $500,000. She directed from in state funds to the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance. So. Okay, again, the roll call vote being called on the Continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act. We'll see if that passes. Again, now we're at 67 votes in all, still about 23 votes to go. 33 votes to go. Math is not my thing.
Ms. Also Brooks, no.
Also Brooks voting no there. Tally.
Ms. Warren, no.
Elizabeth Warren voting no. So I'm trying to watch the 21 people still to go for it to reach, right? 21 people, yeah. Okay, we're going to watch it all throughout the next little bit here. Again, what we are going to do here is the government shutdown reaches day 20. Quick break. When we come back, we'll have more on this all. We'll be right back. And welcome back into this Brooklyn News Special Report. As you were watching, happening now, senators voting to end the longest ever government shutdown. Good to be with you. I'm Jackson Mitchell as we are approaching 7:50 Central Time, 8:50 Eastern Time, continuing to see votes come in. Let's put in our tally. We're at about 31 to 51. There's that tally there on the screen on this kind of unofficial count, but count of the votes that we are getting in. Take it over to the White House. We were just talking about President Donald Trump's reaction to this all, which has been very minimal. He hasn't really weighed in too much at times, he took his Asia trip. He has kind of, in the meantime, kind of destroyed the West Wing, which has drawn much attention, kind of saying, why are you doing that in the middle of a government shutdown, and why are you destroying history, which is what the kind of the negative response has been. To note, the expansion to the White House, the ballroom that has led to the destruction of the East Wing, is being funded by Donald Trump and private donors, not taxpayers. So that is something to note here. Okay. So that is kind of President Donald Trump's reaction. We watched, I don't know, about 5-6 minutes ago now, President Donald Trump at Joint Base Andrews. He said he was swearing in people, kind of in a rush, didn't take any questions from the press, unlike him. So I think that goes to prove his point. He was in quite a rush to swear in some people. But notably, he said Democrats need to open up the government, was essentially what he was saying. Maybe that's now what we're seeing. Democrats here possibly having enough votes to open the government for the continuing resolution. It has been more throughout this entire time in favor of opening up the government again with this new cleaner continuing resolution, though the minority leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, as well as independent Bernie Sanders, both saying it kind of doesn't do what they essentially wanted to be done, because if you remember, the entire reason why Democrats were voting against this was because there wasn't the Obamacare subsidy extension, which is currently out, and people are seeing those on Obamacare are seeing a rise in their insurance premiums. So that is kind of why it's drawing some negativity here from those two people that we were hearing from earlier. Okay, Again, this vote coming in right now for this continuing resolution, unofficial count there above the government shutdown timer, or you can look at the other unofficial tally, which is what I'm kind of basing it off, because we were going to try it and then it kind of didn't work, but now we're seeing a tally pop up on your screen. So we're going to try to follow that and keep you guys up to date, keep it on the screen throughout the entirety of this. Let's see if we can. Let's rewrap kind of what's occurring here for those just joining us. The Senate is voting to end the longest ever government shutdown. It comes at a time where Snap users have not received their payments. Air traffic controllers, federal workers, either furloughed or simply not receiving their checks. The result of the air traffic controllers not being paid, the FAA has reduced air capacity by 10%. That's their response to this. That all began Friday. There has been tons, I wouldn't say tons, but many cancellations and delays in the flight, in the airspace, I should say. Representative Hakeem Jeffries weighing in on this earlier on his social media platform. He said, quote, "America is far too expensive. We will not support spending legislation that fails to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. We will fight the GOP bill in the House of Representatives where Mike Johnson will be compelled to end the 7-week shutdown. 7-week Republican taxpayer funded vacation. Excuse me. There we were also seeing more reaction from House members. This one also a Democrat. Representative Ruben Gallego on the CR. He goes, quote, "I'm voting no on the CR. I have been clear on this from the beginning. I will not turn my back on the 24 million Americans who will see their premiums more than double if we don't extend these tax credits at a time when prices are already too high. Americans are shopping for health insurance and experience such sticker shock that they are being forced to sign up for a crappy, overpriced plan or not signing up for insurance at all." That is Ruben Gallego, the representative from Arizona, Democrat from Arizona, I should say, reaction to all of this. So interesting, to say the least, simply because this is, a house that originally had passed this. They originally passed the continuing resolution, and that is why Speaker Mike Johnson had ultimately decided that taking a recess until the Senate passed it was right, which has also led to some more drama with the swearing in of a representative-elect. So just a lot to talk about, a lot going on. We're following it all. I want to update you guys. You might be asking kind of, what's the difference here? What is different in this CR compared to the last one? This continuing resolution, it's a full, read this. This is what I'm getting from, wrong. Okay, I'm just gonna read this here. This is the response when I posed that question to Google. I literally said, "What is the difference in this CR compared to last CR?" It says that I'm likely referring to the continuing resolution passed by U.S. Congress. The key differences in the CR compared to the last several short-term CRs or the previous full fiscal year's funding, FY 2024 levels include duration, funding levels, defense spending, non-defensive spending, specific programs. I want to note WIC and SNAP would both be funded fully in this current CR as well as the last one. It was simply the Obamacare subsidies that were expiring that Democrats wanted added to the last CR that wasn't. Notably, it's not in this new CR either. This new continuing resolution, it's not in that either. So it's interesting to see. I guess I'm trying to grab a grasp on why Democrats are voting on it now, noting that they did not vote on this in the last vote on this the last time. So new vote update there, 56 to 37 as we continue to watch this. We're getting closer and closer to almost all 100 members voting. We're at 93 right now. So a few more to vote, and then that vote will be cleared. It appears that it's going to pass. At this point in time, it does appear that this is going to pass according to our unofficial vote count. Why don't we take you back out live to the Senate where this is all ongoing? You see many people convening on the floor now. A lot more people than there were a few moments ago. If you remember when Senator John Thune had I'm sorry, not Senator John Thune. I believe it might have been. He says, I want to note there is not a quorum. That was a little earlier. I can't remember if we were on the air for that moment or I was just watching it before we came on the air. That updated vote count there, 56 to 38. As we again are continuing to watch this all play out and kind of where things go forward. We see yays winning. It appears that this is going to pass. Of course, there is a chance for senators to change their vote if that is something that they want to do. And they are allowed to do that if they choose. I believe it is a question asked by the clerk towards the end of voting if anybody would like to change their vote. I'm sure it's asked in a more professional manner, but
No.
I want to do the math here. That is 6 votes. Of course, 38 plus 6 is only 44. It doesn't get it above the 56. Don't want to call it early and say this continuing resolution has passed in the Senate, but it is notable that it has received a significant number of votes, and there is not enough nay voters, unless, of course, the votes change. As I was just noting, it is a question by the clerk if people would like to change their votes, and it is, of course, in history has occurred. There is a precedent for people changing their votes. Things could have happened behind the scenes during the vote that they've said, okay, I want to change my vote now. There is also conversations going on during the vote. You see it right there on the Senate floor on everything. Senators talking to each other. And it may be not even about this continuing resolution, but some conversations could be about this continuing resolution and what's in it, what's changed, if ultimately they want to vote for this. So again, we are getting closer and closer now, just 5 votes away from the grand number of 100 senators. How many senators are in that's how many senators are in the Senate there.
Mr. Booker, no.
Just got another no vote in. Let me put. Now 4 more people have to vote. If they all vote no, it would be what I was kind of saying earlier, 44 to 56. Which is what I was doing the math about earlier. It'd be, which is what I was doing the math about. I couldn't remember if I had my camera up or not, but you probably could see the calculator in front of me doing the math here on kind of what could happen. Right now, we are at 96 out of the 100 senators. You know, it was a question in my head. I don't know how likely it was, but if Vice President J.D. Vance, who is the president of the Senate, would need as a tiebreaker vote, if you do kind of a basics, not history, rather, excuse me, kind of a basic kind of lesson in the Senate, they have technically 101 members, but Vice President J.D. Vance, usually the president has been their only kind of used in these severe cases when Republicans simply need 1 more vote to pass something. I can't remember if I'm correct here. Kamala Harris might have been used for the president of the Senate. Maybe I'm confusing something. I'm not exactly 100% sure. Trying to see kind of what my memory would bring me if that was something notable. Again, we are continuing to watch a Senate procedural vote, a roll call vote on this new CR to possibly end the government shutdown. This government shutdown now, the longest ever. If you recall, it would be President Trump's first administration that would set the history for the first longest shutdown, which was about 35 days. Now we're at 40. You see that counter there at the bottom of your screen. 39 days, 21 hours, 1 minute, and about to be 2 minutes exit on the dot there. So, continuing to watch the updated vote count there, 56 to 40, as we continue to watch this procedural vote that is ongoing in the Senate. After, if it were to pass the Senate, which it looks increasingly more likely as each person votes, if it were to become, in order for it to become law, anything that passes the Senate, anything that passes the House, has to go to the other side of Capitol Hill. So, passes the House, has to go to the Senate. If it passes the Senate first, it has to go to the House, and that is exactly what this continuing resolution has to do. It has to make its way across Capitol Hill to the other side, to the House, for them to vote on it. It's going to be interesting. I was just talking about 2 different people who said no. It's also going to be interesting to see which Republicans say no, considering it has been longtime Trump supporter, longtime Trump supporter, the representative, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican from Georgia, who has went against her party in recent weeks during this shutdown, saying her constituents specifically are going to struggle when these Obamacare subsidies run out, which they have since run out, of course, since she began her argument. So it would be interesting to see if she voted yes or no to this new continuing resolution when it reaches the House, kind of what Marjorie Taylor Greene does here. She did, I might need to check. Let me check. I'm not sure what she voted. To the continuing resolution when the House originally voted on it. She rejects it. I'm reading a story from Fox 5 in Atlanta where they say Marjorie Taylor Greene said Monday that she will not support House Republicans leaders' plan to temporarily fund the government, breaking with other members as Congress avoids what they're saying. Greene, one of the President Donald Trump's most vocal allies. That's a good explanation of her. Sorry, I'm trying to think of how else to mention her. She's a really strong supporter of Donald Trump. Kind of breaking with the party, though, here. Donald Trump back in, when was this? Where's the date on it? I don't see the date. Okay, this was back. Sorry, I'm looking for a date and I don't see one. Oh, September 15th, which is when the House originally took on the vote to pass this. He said congressional Republicans, including Leader John Thune and Speaker Mike Johnson, are working on a short-term, quote, clean, unquote, extension of the government funding to stop crying Chuck Schumer from shutting down the government in times like these. Republicans have to stick together to fight back against the radical left Democrats' demands and vote yes on both votes needed to pass a clean CR this week out of the House of Representatives. Democrats want the government to shut down. Republicans want the government to open. Democrats love crime. Republicans love to make our country. Republicans make our country safe. We hate crime. Failure is not an option. Thank you for your attention to this to this matter, President DJT, Donald John Trump. There we go. That was President. His reaction back in September to that continuing resolution that was voted in the House. MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying no to that. Saying her constituents specifically need the Obamacare subsidies that have since ran out. 8 Democrats so far have crossed party lines to vote in favor of this. continuing resolution so far. That is something that is notable. When is today? November 9th. Sorry here. I just realized I made a mistake on an earlier image that was displayed here on BN. I'm sorry, I'm literally realizing this in real time. That graphic, this is Representative Ruben Gallego. He is now a senator. He just became one in 2025. My information there was misconstrued, and I do apologize for that. It was not on purpose to make that mistake. I simply just gathered my information incorrectly. I am going to correct that graphic and air it correctly here in just a moment. If you guys recall, I aired it when we were talking about Senator Ruben Gallego and the Democrat from Arizona, as well as Hakeem Jeffries, that graphic that showed the quote between the two. I'm going to correct that. Ooh, I'm sorry. It has since been corrected. That this is a graphic again. Sorry for misconstruing my information. Senator Ruben Gallego. He was recently actually put into place here. 56-40 is the current vote over in the Senate. Just take a look there. As the government shutdown has approached day 40. As we've noted this entire hour, pretty much, so we've been on the air about 57 minutes, so we've been on the air. If this were to pass the Senate, it does have to face the House, which is going to be interesting. Though, I would argue to say it's likely to pass the House, considering they passed the first continuing resolution. We'll see kind of if any Democrats change their mind, any Republicans changing their mind on the original vote that we saw. Give me just a second. I'm actually going to take a look at that House. The House vote. 1 second. Sorry, my IFB, the earpiece that we wear, so we're able to hear kind of what's going on the broadcast without an echo. Like a headphone, essentially. I'm trying to see how apparently I'm not good at accessing maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. The clerks. This was right here. This was September 19th on the passage of the Continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act. I'll read this. 216 Republicans said yay, 2 said nay, 1 Democrat said yes to this, 210 said no, meaning the total was 217 to 212. Republicans got it on this one. I want to see what Democrat said yay. I might be able to. It was Representative Jared Golden of Maine. He voted in favor of this, the only Democrat here to break with his party. Again, voting, breaking party lines there. Let me go to Republicans who said nay. That would be Thomas Massie, who we've known, and Victoria Sparks from Indiana. Thomas Massie, known to break with this party, especially when it comes to spending. It is some congressmen and congresswomen's idea that this is not what they want. They want long-term spending. They want certain things. They're going to get that. And at times, they simply just voted no. At times, their vote, like Thomas Massie, was needed. So they've had to put in something that would essentially help party leadership decide to put in something in the continuing resolution that would help his constituents and kind of give him what he wants, to get him to vote in favor of this. The procedural vote continuing, on the extending kind of what's currently in place, though some things have changed a little bit in this continuing resolution, though SNAP and WIC programs continue to be fully funded, something that users now are really struggling with. They have not seen their accounts reloaded really since the start of this government shutdown, and that is what we are waiting on. Now, what we are going to do is take another quick break here, because simply I've been talking for a little bit too long, and need a little bit of a break. We'll see where this vote goes. We will when we come back, we'll kind of reconvene where things are, where things stand. That again is going to be in just a moment. You are watching Brooklyn News, a Brooklyn News special report on our coverage of this quite historic moment. We will be right back. You're watching a Brooklyn News special report. And welcome back into Brooklyn News' coverage of the Senate voting to end the longest ever government shutdown. We're now in day 40 on this new continuing resolution that Democrats, 8 Democrats now have agreed and voted in favor. We're still waiting for a number of key votes to come in. The current vote there, you can see it just above the government shutdown timer. Can I point out it? There we go. 56 to 40 is where that currently stands. Welcome into our coverage. The time now 8:18 Central Time, 9:19 on the East Coast, where Capitol Hill is located. A live look at the Senate at this hour, where that vote is continuing to go. The clerk has stepped away, though there are many clerks in the Senate at multiple points in time. We're waiting on a few more to vote, and then we will see where this goes. There are 56 yays and 40 noes. 96 people, senators, have voted, meaning there are 4 more. If you say those 4 vote not in favor of this bill, it would be 44 to 56, meaning it could win. Though, as I've noted earlier, the clerk does ask if anyone would like to change their vote, and they're able to change their vote, so that is a possibility of something to occur. Dan. I'm seeing, if you guys will hold with me, because on another network they are addressing, the Democrats that voted in favor of this are addressing the media. I'm trying to play it out for you guys, but I'm having trouble finding a video into it. Sorry guys, I'm just having trouble finding a live feed into the senators that voted in favor of this, the Senate Democrats that voted with Republicans. I'm checking everything to see if there is a feed in any way to watch this. It looks like all I've got is the Senate. Yeah, only live feed I'm seeing is the Senate. Sorry, that's why we kind of paused there for just a moment, because I'm If you guys will hold with me, we will play it from the beginning. Okay. Give me just a moment. We are going to dip in live to this event occurring over in the... Okay, we've got a live feed. We're going to go to it if you guys will hold with us here. This is the Democrats that voted in favor of funding the CR speaking now. Let's listen in.
I believe that we are closer tonight to a vote on the ACA tax credits than we were this morning. Because part of this agreement, and you heard the majority leader on the floor today say he is committed to putting a bill on the floor before the second week in December that would be drafted by the Democrats concerning health care and the ACA. That is a big step, because otherwise there's no way for the minority to get a bill onto the floor of the U.S. Senate. It has to be through the office of the majority leader. So that was a major step to get the majority leader to agree to make that commitment tonight on the Senate floor. So the sum is we are closer to the possibility of work on the ACA a week ago, 2 weeks ago, or a month ago. So this agreement tonight is a win for the American people. And it's a win for those people that are so insistent that I'm hearing from all the time, protect our health care. Our judgment is the best way to do that is to get a bill on the floor. Is there a guarantee it will pass? No. Is it a guarantee it will pass in the House? There is actually some very strong interest in the House, a possibility of a bipartisan bill and to get a discharge petition, and then perhaps we're on the way. And we have that expression from Republican senators who are interested in working on a bill that will deal with the ACA issue and perhaps additional health care issues at the same time. So what happened tonight is not the closing of a chapter, it's the opening of an opportunity. What the chapter it does close is the damaging shutdown that is only getting worse, that is only going to impact more and more people, and it's an opportunity for us to move forward on behalf of all of the people of this country on the issue of health care, but also on making the federal government function. Thank you.
That was Senator Angus King, the independent. Again, supporters who kind of went against party lines voting in favor of this funding bill are currently speaking. Let's continue listening in.
Washington's dysfunction is making life harder for families, and the last 39 days are proof of that. A record-long government shutdown paired with record-high health insurance cost increases is not the kind of history that the American people want Congress to make. Over the last several weeks, I've heard from Granite Staters who can't afford a doubling of their health insurance costs. I've also heard from families about the deep pain that the government shutdown has caused, made worse by a president who illegally and repeatedly chose to cut off help for families who are just trying to buy groceries. After weeks of bipartisan conversations, I voted today to reopen the government so that we can get back to the work of helping Granite Staters. This agreement funds SNAP and food assistance programs, ensures that law enforcement, air traffic controllers, and other federal workers get paid, reverses the president's recent reckless layoffs, and prevents them from happening in the future.
Okay, senators there that went against this bill in the Senate are currently speaking on what has been a quite an interesting and telling moment. Currently speaking is Senator Maggie Hassan, the Democrat from New Hampshire. I do want to go back and listen into this. Maybe some of them towards the end of this will take questions on this. Let's listen back in.
Months. Shortly, Senate Republicans now finally have to come to the table. Or, make no mistake, Americans will remember who stood in the way. So I urge Speaker Johnson to finally return the House of Representatives into session and quickly reopen the government. And I urge all Americans in communities red, blue, and purple to continue to speak out about the importance of affordable health care so that families across America can get that critical care that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. And I thank my colleagues for their good work. The vote tonight, and you've heard all of us talking about this, the vote tonight was crucial to open the government because too many Americans, hardworking individuals, seniors, children, were suffering. I know in Nevada, particularly that is based on a service industry, tourism and travel, we are doubly hit. Tariffs, bad policies of this administration, and the shutdown was having an impact on travel to our state and quite honestly across the country. But it wasn't just that. We have federal workers that were suffering. We have TSA agents. We have airport controllers. And we were seeing lines to our food banks in northern Nevada. These were lines that I hadn't seen since the pandemic. And the stories were horrific. Seniors in line needing food because they couldn't get access to the food that they usually would get at the federal level. One man came and refused to say who he was because he was embarrassed and said, I shouldn't be here, but he needed the food. Mothers coming to the food bank to get food for their children. My colleagues know that opening the government was key to stopping that pain. But here's the thing. We can open the government and we can still fight to address this looming healthcare crisis. It is true. Right now, in our states and across the country, Americans are seeing higher costs, higher premiums for their Affordable Care Act. These are people that need access to health care. I have families that rely on the Affordable Care Act and these subsidies so that their children who have a rare disease can access their medication. I have small businesses who rely on the Affordable Care Act and the subsidies to help cover the costs for their employees. This is a fight that the Republicans need to understand is not just happening in Nevada, it is happening across the country in every state, including those red states. This fight tonight is, I agree with Senator Angus, is just the beginning. This is the beginning to show and fight for Americans across the country. Let me just say this. With the government open, we can focus on passing a full bipartisan budget for 2026 that starts with a minibus that will restore funding that President Trump cut. It delivers millions of dollars in critical funding to states like Nevada all across the country. And it, you will hear, blocks the administration from future rifts. We have an opportunity also to put Republicans on the record on the ACA. Are they committed to doing this? Are they committed? Leader Thune said he would come to the table on a health care once the government was open, and now he must follow through. If Republicans want to join us in lowering costs for working families, they have the perfect opportunity to show the American public. I expect Republicans to be at the table in the next few weeks. I expect the White House to be at the table. And if they do choose not to come to the table, they can own the disastrous premium increases that will continue to rise. They will own the fact that Americans across this country are going to lose access to health care. We were elected in the Senate to work on real solutions that help working families. It's our responsibility to work not only here amongst ourselves, but across the aisle to solve these problems for the Americans, make their lives a little bit easier. And that's what we have done tonight.
So, hey, everybody, I'm the cleanup hitter because I joined this group I joined it 48 hours ago. Not for lack of interest, and I got to applaud Jeanne Shaheen and this group because they have been having open meetings that anybody could participate in on negotiation, but I had my hands full focused on the Virginia elections until Wednesday morning. And as soon as that was over, I have now engaged, and engaged with a particular purpose in mind. I knew the Democratic appropriators, led by Patty Murray, were going to do the very best job they could to get these 3 appropriations bills queued up and moving forward. A bill, for example, that has very robust SNAP funding, very robust funding for the VA. I had confidence in that. And I had confidence in these guys that they were going to get the best possible deal they could get from Republicans on the ACA. We were in a situation where SNAP recipients were suffering, and there was no guarantee we would ever get to an ACA solution. Now we've got robust SNAP funding and a guaranteed vote, not a guaranteed outcome, but a guaranteed vote on ACA tax credits. But I engaged on the issue that I've been talking about for a month on the floor to Senator Thune, Katie Britt, Lindsey Graham, James Lankford, anybody who had listened to me on the Republican side. I've said what I need in Virginia, with 320,000 federal employees who live in households that probably encompass nearly 650 or 700,000 residents in my state, I need a moratorium on mischief. My Virginians have been suffering under this administration. The shutdown started on January 20. I need a moratorium on the punishing of the federal workforce. That's what I need. And so I joined this group to make sure that we could get important protections for federal employees. And what we have in this bill is the restoration of all the furloughed employees and a guarantee of their back pay, the restoration of all RIFT employees who got RIFT after October 1 with all of their back pay, and a guarantee of no RIFs. No RIFs going forward. 2 million federal workers, not just my 300,000, 2 million federal workers who are not uniformed military now have a guarantee of no RIFs going forward. So they don't have to go into the holiday season with anxiety about what's going to show up on their email one morning at 5:30 a.m. That's a big win for 2 million federal employees, and added together with these other ingredients of robust appropriations bills and a guaranteed path forward to vote on fixing the ACA, that made me sign on and say, yes, we can do it. I had a number of Republicans on the floor tonight that said, we were amazed that you got that no RIF guarantee in there. And I'm glad that we did, and we all worked so hard on it together, and I have huge respect for my colleagues who made this happen. Thanks.
Senator. You say you're fighting on the Affordable Care Act, but what do you say to your colleagues who say this isn't a fight, this is a capitulation? You're putting together, you're agreeing to a vote on a bill that it almost certainly will not become law, and you're allowing that to happen.
Well, first of all, there was, as long as the government shut down, the clear statement from Senator Thune and the Republican majority, and they control the Senate, the House, the White House, was we will not talk about health care with you. So there was no vote that we were going to get on the Affordable Care Act, premium tax credits. We have a guaranteed vote by a guaranteed date on a bill that we will write. Not that the Republicans will write, although I do think it's important for us to engage with them, because we need a bipartisan bill that we know is going to get enacted to provide the relief that Americans need. And I think there's a commitment on the part of many of our colleagues to do that.
But there's no guarantee this will become law.
There was never a guarantee that it would become law.
Well, just to follow up on that, Senator, because we understand that this vote will happen, but a vote on extending the tax credits, it does not guarantee that it's going to happen. So how do you explain, though, to your constituents why it was worth it to put up this fight for so long when in the end you did not get your key demand?
Because it wasn't working. How long would it take to not get a response to say it isn't working? In other words, it's been 6 weeks. There's been the Republicans made it clear they weren't going to discuss the health care issue, the Affordable Care Act tax credits, until the shutdown was over. We tried to keep working that for 6 weeks. It didn't happen. The vote that we have is not a guarantee for sure. It's more of a guarantee. Here's the way I would put it. As I assessed it, there was zero chance of dealing with the ACA issue as long as the shutdown continued. Now, I don't know, 50-50, but there's a lot better chance now than there was this morning, because nothing was happening, and there was no evidence that another week or another 2 weeks or Thanksgiving or Christmas was suddenly the Republicans were to come to us and say, oh, we want to now talk about the ACA. If they weren't going to do it by now, what's going to change in the next 2 weeks that's going to make them do it? And that was really the assessment. Again, I would say, right, as of this morning, there was a 0 chance of having a work on the ACA. Now there's a measurable chance. Will it be everything that everybody wanted? No, because we need 60 votes. And so there's going to be a negotiation. But Republicans have already started saying, well, here, if you did this or did that, maybe we can get there. So I would take a reasonable chance against no chance every day. And that's and the other piece is, and we didn't really emphasize this, there are 3 important appropriations bills in this that would lock in SNAP for the rest of the year at a very substantial rate. Plus other benefits, veterans funding is guaranteed if we can get these 3 bills through. So there's a plus on that. And I think the odds are that we have a better chance of doing something about the ACA than we did not going into this. At some point, you have to decide, what is the best strategic step forward. And we believe that the evidence is that what we were doing wasn't working, and therefore, let's try something else.
The real question is, why would a president of the United States pit hungry children against sick children? And that is what President Trump has done. I mean, this is outrageous. We can't reach agreement on government funding, so the government shuts down, and even though the law is clear that he could fund SNAP benefits during the shutdown, he did not. And then he also said, and by the way, I don't really care if people's health insurance premiums get so high they can't afford their care. That's on Donald Trump. My vote today was to do 2 things, both equally morally important and imperative. One is to make sure that the government is functioning so that our kids eat, so that our elderly citizens eat, so that our air traffic controllers can get some sleep and earn money, get paid while they are working, so that our veterans are protected, and continue the fight to a realistic platform to get the premium tax cuts done. And if that is not successful, then shame on the Republican Party and shame on Donald Trump. But the American people will see who stands with them on health care and who does not. And that will be the platform of the next stage of the fight. I hope we can find bipartisan agreement on an extension of those premium tax credits. In New Hampshire, a couple of who are 60 years old or so, earning $85,000 a year, are seeing like a $15,000 increase in their insurance premiums. This has to get fixed. And we have about a month to do it before the harm gets to be irreparable. And again, if the Republicans can't come to the table and do something reasonable on this and make sure that people can afford their health care and that the whole private commercial market also doesn't see skyrocketing increases, then shame on them.
Senator Chief, what do you say to the millions of Americans who are already in the Obamacare exchanges, seeing premiums skyrocketed, who were hoping because of what you all said that they would get answers on what their premiums would be now, but have to wait weeks longer since you've decided to open the government without immediate action on the subsidies?
Well, as Senator Hassan said so well, the Republicans weren't providing any commitment or even a willingness to vote or a willingness to discuss extending the premium tax credits. We have the opportunity to do that now, and we will hold their feet to the fire.
And just quick, most of us up here in the group of 8 that voted for this tonight have voted repeatedly with the Democratic strategy of we're not opening and we want you to take action on the ACA tax credit. But after 40 days, it wasn't going to work. So here we are in a situation, and this was the reality. SNAP recipients suffering, nothing happening on ACA. The vote tonight will be full, and not just last year's, but full and robust SNAP funding for SNAP recipients and a path on the ACA. So from suffering and no path, we've now got robust benefits and a path. And that's what we tell our constituents.
Senator Gavin, if I could just ask, there's already calls now from Democrats in the House that are saying Leader Schumer should step aside, he should be replaced. You know, the 8 of you today voting with Republicans to advance this plan to reopen the government, does that just further the divides within the Democratic Party right now?
No. When I talk to my constituents in New Hampshire, you know what they say to me? They say, why can't you all just work together to address the problems that are facing this country? We put the Senate back on a path to start doing that today, and we're going to continue to work that way.
All right, one last question.
If the president doesn't agree and the Republicans block the extension of AC subsidies, would you guys be willing to vote again against government funding in January when the funding runs out?
That's certainly an option that I think everybody will consider. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone. Senator King? Angus.
Not mine.
That's mine. Angus, can I grab
Okay, so senators there, the ones that voted in favor of this all, speaking to and taking questions from the press on this unprecedented moment, Democrats breaking from their party. 8 Democrats breaking from party lines in order to support this bill. The vote count remains the same as we take you back to a live look at the Senate. What it was so notable in that press conference, Angus King there, when you had asked a question, he was asked a question, which it was like, why are you breaking from your party when you ultimately didn't even get what you want? Angus King saying we were trying, essentially saying the party was trying for 6 weeks now to get these Obamacare or the the Affordable Care Act subsidies extended. It didn't work. I mean, he said, quote, it wasn't working, and that kind of would lead to these people breaking from their party. That what they wanted simply wasn't working. Republicans weren't breaking, and it was causing impacts. Therefore, they had to break from their party. So, the Senate's still voting, as we were saying earlier, still about 4 people left to vote. We're waiting on that to happen. We were just listening into that press conference there for just a moment as that was all ongoing. So we're going to continue monitoring this all throughout the evening, of course, for you guys to make sure everything's the most updated. Again, we're on day 40 of this government shutdown. It has been an historic government shutdown. We are waiting for final Republicans to vote. It's interesting because no matter which way they vote, this bill will either pass. This bill is going to pass according to the numbers that we have in front of our faces right now, 40 to 56. So not sure to whom it matters, to whom it matters if this vote ends up passing. So we will be watching that part of things here. Wine shot at Capitol Hill tonight. There's a look at Capitol Hill tonight as we are really, there's a lot going on, guys, and we're waiting for everything. Waiting for these 4 final Republicans to go ahead and vote. Something that we have not seen just yet. Again, 4 more senators need to vote on this, and then we will be good to go for the night. Only 4 more. And then we'll see if this passes or fails. If the government ultimately has more of a chance, about a 50% chance to reopen, considering where the House will vote on this. Notably, the House did ultimately pass the first continuing resolution. This one, not much has changed. So we'll see where this goes. Again, awaiting 4 final Republicans to vote here. And as I was noting just a few minutes ago, doesn't matter where their vote goes. This bill is extremely likely to pass unless there is a major change to come. Unless there is some type of major change. Again, 4 Republicans need to vote, and this will move forward. We are going to take a quick break on this Sunday. Now, 8:48 p.m. Central Time. About 9:48, almost 9:50, as we await a few more votes to come in. Our coverage will. Are they coming in to vote? I'm seeing some movement here. So I'm kind of awaiting, maybe. I was going to just throw it to break here, but they might be the 4 Republicans going to vote. I can't exactly tell. 1 second. I'm going to pull up the. Yeah, okay. We've got an updated vote tally. Give me a moment here and I'll go to it. It's going, the updated vote tally. Let's put it on your screen. That's got to be 5940. Meaning we need 1 more vote if I'm correct. Yep, we need 1 more vote and we will be good to go. That vote not yet received. We are still waiting for it. Again, that is 1 more vote. Let me change our graphic there at the bottom of your screen so that information is correct. We're waiting 1 more Republican. To cast their vote, and then we will be good to go. Again, current tally 59-40 is where this vote stands. We are going okay, we are going to sneak in a quick break. When we come back, we will have more on this vote that could possibly reopen the government. You are watching this Brooklyn News special report. And welcome back into this Brooklyn News Special Report. I'm Jackson Mitchell. It is Sunday now, 8:53. We have a lot of news we are covering at this hour. Again, the Senate continuing its vote to end the government shutdown on this new continuing resolution. It all came about earlier today when sources reported that a new continuing resolution would come about, a new vote would come about. Angus King moments ago in a press conference with the Democrats, those that crossed party lines to vote in favor of this new continuing resolution, saying, quote, it wasn't working. Speaking on the Obamacare subsidy, something that Democrats were, that the reason Democrats were saying no to the other continuing resolution, saying if the Obamacare subsidies are not extended, they will not vote for it. Republicans not backing down from their motion either, saying, well, we're not going to extend them, essentially. Then, as this war continued during this nearly 40-day ongoing government shutdown, Democrats and Republicans blaming each other for this. Democrats saying that they're not extending Obamacare subsidies. Republicans saying it's not about that. Rather pass the bill. Then we'll have discussions later on where to go forward. One Republican has yet to cast his vote. As you see the current tally there on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, the current vote 59 to 40. 99 representatives have casted their vote. It appears very likely that this is going to pass the Senate. Notably, if this passes the Senate, considering that it is new continuing resolution, it will have to go back to the House and face the House for another vote. We are going to take you now live out to the Senate, where this is continuing there. A live look there. Again, the Senate voting to end the government shutdown. One more senator to go, and then we will be good to go for this continuing resolution. I should be careful, shouldn't be using we, rather, that this vote will be good going forward to the House. Now about to approach the top of the 9 o'clock hour, 10 o'clock hour on the East Coast. We'll see if even at this point in time, is this Republican even going to vote? We have been waiting for quite some time. At first, we were waiting for about 4 Republicans to cast their vote. Now we're just waiting for one last senator who's a Republican to cast his vote. So we are going to be watching it all and continuing to monitor. Is that? Nope. Just a staffer. Thought it might have been that one last person that we're waiting on to give the approval or the nay to move forward on this continuing resolution. Within the continuing resolution, pretty standard to the last one. It's going to fully fund SNAP and WIC, something that we were talking about earlier in the broadcast, but it's something that people are struggling with. Those users on SNAP have yet to see a refill on their card. So it's going to be something that is going to be useful going forward, because as I was just noting, users have simply just not seen a refill for SNAP or WIC on their cards because there is no essentially directory to where the money can go. I believe I was posed a question earlier this week, or I know I posed a question, but the question was, taxes are still being taken out of my check. Why is it, why are people struggling with this when taxes are being taken out of my check still? Answer to that, there's no directory, there's nothing in writing saying your money goes here. Essentially, tons of money piling up, but there's nowhere for it to go because there's similar to possibly at your large jobs, you have a budget. You can't just spend over that budget, and if you have no budget, you have nothing to go off of. You have no money to spend because you have no budget. There is no budget, and that is what people are being faced with right now. We are continuing to take a live look there at the Senate, where we are awaiting one last Republican to make their vote. Then I believe after that, the Senate is going to conclude. Reconvene would mean convene for a second time. Is going to conclude its session for today, and move on. 59-40 is the vote that we are watching. Continuing to watch there, a live look at the Senate as we continue to wait for this last senator to vote. We'll see if they vote at the top of the hour, guys. We are going to sneak in another quick break. You are watching a Brooklyn News special report. Again, the Senate voting now to end the government shutdown. It would have to go to the House if this budget passes. We're back in a few moments, guys. Welcome back into this Brooklyn News special report. At this hour, the Senate voting to end the government shutdown. We are following it all in our breaking news coverage of this all. Coming about today, as we were just saying moments ago on the air, a new continuing resolution the Democrats have gotten behind. Moments ago, a press conference held, including those Democrats, those that caucus with Democrats, that stepped across the aisle taking questions. At one point, a question was posed: why vote now for this when not much has changed? Angus King, the independent senator, saying, quote, "It wasn't working." If you remember, Democrats were demanding for Affordable Care Act subsidies or Obamacare's Obamacare subsidies to be extended as they have expired. Those on Obamacare are seeing insurance premium spike. And again, Angus King, they're saying it wasn't working, which was very noticeable during that entire press conference, saying kind of what Democrats were attempting to do wasn't working. I don't know. You could argue maybe that was alluding to maybe that they caved into Republicans. I'm sure if a Democrat was to hear me, they wouldn't like me using that language. But I mean, for Angus King saying it wasn't working, Republicans had this bill. They run the House, they run the Senate, and what they want is within it. And that what they wanted was in it, and the Republicans aren't caving at any nature to vote to add and extend those Obamacare subsidies. Republicans just saying, pass it, then we can talk about the subsidies being extended. Marjorie Taylor Greene breaking with her party, voting no on the continuing resolution back when it was in the House. For that same reason, saying, well, no, my constituents need these extended Obamacare subsidies, therefore we should do that. So she broke with her party back in the House. We're waiting on one final person to vote, as if you have done the math now by looking at the counter in the bottom right-hand section of your screen. 59-40 votes. That is 99 out of the 100 senators. We're waiting on one final vote. It is unclear as to why we've been waiting quite some time now. Could they? I know at times this bill was passed quickly and they're hundreds of pages long, so he could possibly have a team going through that now. So that's what we're waiting on. Again, one final senator to vote. Give me a second, because I'm gonna surface the web here and see what is being reported. I want to see. We're getting more statements in, of course, and I want to go to those as soon as we can. Let me check this really quickly here. Representative Ro Khanna, this is, sorry, I'm just surfacing the web and we're learning of details coming in as they occur. Give me a second to not throw up his statement on the screen, but he's breaking with party leadership here. If I'm reading this correctly, saying it is time for change. I'm going to get this on the screen for you guys. Okay, let's put up Rep. Ro Khanna just moments ago, at about 8:11 p.m. It's 9:05, so at the essentially last hour. Let me see if I got it. Going against party leadership here in the Senate. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying my best to get things pulled up here. Yep, we have it in. Let's go to it. This is the breaking news. Rep. Ro Khanna breaking with Senate party leadership by saying this, quote, Senator Schumer is no longer effective. To note here, Senator Schumer is the minority leader, someone who's led Democrats now for, I believe, over a decade. He is no longer effective and should be replaced. If you can't lead the fight to stop healthcare premiums from skyrocketing for Americans, what will you fight for? That is Representative Ro Khanna. That is very notable, I would say. And we are getting in another representative. Representative Seth, I should say, 1 second here. He's a candidate for U.S. Senate in Massachusetts. Seth Moulton is saying, quote, tonight is another example of why we need new leadership. If Chuck Schumer were to be effective, he would have united his caucus to vote no tonight and hold the line on healthcare. Maybe now Ed Markey will finally join me in pledging not to vote for Schumer. Ed Markey, that is the senator from also Massachusetts. Okay, again, a candidate for U.S. Senate, another Representative Ro Khanna, who is in the House, breaking with Senate leadership, saying here that it is time for a new leader. I think it's been notable going back to the election, the 2025 election that we had just a few weeks ago, where Democrats kind of took that big win. It's notable that younger people were winning those races. They're moderate Democrats, something that is one of the biggest parties. Those in the middle, those they don't side necessarily all the time with Republicans. They don't side necessarily all the time with Democrats, but also those that are moderate Republicans, people who at times have gone against Republicans, and moderate Democrats who have at times gone against the Democratic Party, including Abigail Spanberger and in the race for Virginia and in the race for New Jersey. There, the Democrat, the Democrat governor elect. They are also a moderate Democrat. 2 moderate Democrats. So that very notable, Pierre, that maybe people are calling for younger leadership in the House and Senate. Both Hakeem Jeffries, someone who is younger, if you remember Nancy Pelosi there resigning, becoming the speaker, and Moretta, and then we had Hakeem Jeffries and Kevin McCarthy and Mike Johnson in that race a few years ago. I believe we were on the air for multiple hours that day covering it because it was so controversial. It was people beginning to elect the speaker pro temp there. So that's something to watch because they were getting rid of Kevin McCarthy's impeaching the right board there. We are at 59:40 still, waiting for that final vote to call it a night in the Senate. Before heading to President Donald Trump's desk, though, before he is able to sign this, which it is our indication that he will, very likely he will. There has been no indication that he won't so far. But it has to go back to the House. The House is a little different, though, because it doesn't need 60 votes. It just needs a majority vote. Going back to the first continuing resolution that was passed, I believe it was 212 to 217. That's how it was passed. One Democrat voting in favor of it. All Republicans, excluding just a few, voting for it. Almost every Democrat voting no, except one, as I was just saying there. So possibly expected to pass there. It looks like Democrats are going to take a no vote once again, just simply because they're what they have argued for this entire time: the Obamacare subsidies, the Affordable Care Act subsidies. They're both the same thing. Sorry, here I'm just kind of using the proper name and the improper name. They're the Obamacare subsidies to be extended, and they have not been extended. So something extremely notable as we go forward. Let's, as we are awaiting a vote to come from this final person who it's I want to take you to a moment that occurred earlier in the House where those people, the people that's voted, the broke party lines voting in favor in the Senate of this bill spoke. Let's take you there now and listen in.
Is a win for the American people. And it's a win for those people that are so insistent that I'm hearing from all the time, protect our health care. Our judgment is the best way to do that is to get a bill on the floor. Is there a guarantee it will pass? No. Is it a guarantee it will pass in the House? There is actually some very strong interest in the House, a possibility of a bipartisan bill and to get a discharge petition, and then perhaps we're on the way. And we have that expression from Republican senators who are interested in working on a bill that will deal with the ACA issue and perhaps additional health care issues at the same time. So what happened tonight is not the closing of a chapter, it's the opening of an opportunity. What the chapter it does close is the damaging shutdown that is only getting worse, that is only going to impact more and more people, and it's an opportunity for us to move forward on behalf of all the people of this country on the issue of health care, but also on making the federal government function. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. At a time when families desperately need relief, Washington's dysfunction is making life harder for families, and the last 39 days are proof of that. A record-long government shutdown paired with record-high health insurance cost increases is not the kind of history that the American people want Congress to make. Over the last several weeks, I've heard from Granite Staters who can't afford a doubling of their health insurance costs. I've also heard from families about the deep pain that the government shutdown has caused, made worse by a president who illegally and repeatedly chose to cut off help for families who are just trying to buy groceries. After weeks of bipartisan conversations, I voted today to reopen the government so that we can get back to the work of helping Granite Staters. This agreement funds SNAP and food assistance programs, ensures that law enforcement, air traffic controllers, and other federal workers get paid, reverses the president's recent reckless layoffs and prevents them from happening in the future, and crucially, gives Congress a clear path forward to protecting people's health care. Our work to deliver relief for families now enters an important phase. Congress has 1 month to engage in serious bipartisan negotiations to extend the Affordable Care Act's expiring tax cuts that help people afford their health insurance. And let's be really clear, part of what has been happening is the time period to make that meaningful extension of these tax cuts has been dwindling. We are getting closer and closer to the time in which families have to decide whether they can buy their health insurance or not and enroll in health insurance in this coming year. So my Democratic colleagues and I have been ready to work on this issue, on extending these tax cuts for months. With the government reopening shortly, Senate Republicans now finally have to come to the table. Or, make no mistake, Americans will remember who stood in the way. So I urge Speaker Johnson to finally return the House of Representatives into session and quickly reopen the government. And I urge all Americans in communities red, blue, and purple to continue to speak out about the importance of affordable health care so that families across America can get that critical care that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. And I thank my colleagues for their good work. The vote tonight, and you've heard all of us talking about this, the vote tonight was crucial to open the government because too many Americans, hardworking individuals, seniors, children, were suffering. I know in Nevada, particularly that is based on a service industry, tourism and travel, we are doubly hit. Tariffs, bad policies of this administration, and the shutdown was having an impact on travel to our state and quite honestly across the country. But it wasn't just that. We have federal workers that were suffering. We have TSA agents. We have airport controllers. And we were seeing lines to our food banks in northern Nevada. These were lines that I hadn't seen since the pandemic. And the stories were horrific. Seniors in line needing food because they couldn't get access to the food that they usually would get at the federal level. One man came and refused to say who he was because he was embarrassed and said, "I shouldn't be here," but he needed the food. Mothers coming to the food bank to get food for their children. My colleagues know that opening the government was key to stopping that pain. But here's the thing. We can open the government and we can still fight to address this looming healthcare crisis. It is true. Right now, in our states and across the country, Americans are seeing higher costs, higher premiums for their Affordable Care Act. These are people that need access to health care. I have families that rely on the Affordable Care Act and these subsidies so that their children who have a rare disease can access their medication. I have small businesses who rely on the Affordable Care Act and the subsidies to help cover the costs for their employees. This is a fight that the Republicans need to understand is not just happening in Nevada, it is happening across the country in every state, including those red states. This fight tonight is, I agree with Senator Angus, is just the beginning. This is the beginning to show and fight for Americans across the country. Let me just say this. With the government open, we can focus on passing a full bipartisan budget for 2026 that starts with a minibus that will restore funding that President Trump cut. It delivers millions of dollars in critical funding to states like Nevada all across the country. And it, you will hear, blocks the administration from future rifts. We have an opportunity also to put Republicans on the record on the ACA. Are they committed to doing this? Are they committed? Leader Thune said he would come to the table on a health care once the government was open, and now he must follow through. If Republicans want to join us in lowering costs for working families, they have the perfect opportunity to show the American public. I expect Republicans to be at the table in the next few weeks. I expect the White House to be at the table. And if they do choose not to come to the table, they can own the disastrous premium increases that will continue to rise. They will own the fact that Americans across this country are going to lose access to health care. We were elected in the Senate to work on real solutions that help working families. It's our responsibility to work not only here amongst ourselves, but across the aisle to solve these problems for the Americans, make their lives a little bit easier. And that's what we have done tonight.
So, hey, everybody, I'm the cleanup hitter because I joined this group the last. I joined it 48 hours ago. Not for lack of interest, and I got to applaud Jeanne Shaheen and this group because they have been having open meetings that anybody could participate in on negotiation, but I had my hands full focused on the Virginia elections until Wednesday morning. And as soon as that was over, I have now engaged, and engaged with a particular purpose in mind. I knew the Democratic appropriators, led by Patty Murray, were going to do the very best job they could to get these three approach bills queued up and moving forward. A bill, for example, that has very robust SNAP funding, very robust funding for the VA. I had confidence in that. And I had confidence in these guys that they were going to get the best possible deal they could get from Republicans on the ACA. We were in a situation where SNAP recipients were suffering, and there was no guarantee we would ever get to an ACA solution. Now we've got robust SNAP funding and a guaranteed vote, not a guaranteed outcome, but a guaranteed vote on ACA tax credits. But I engaged on the issue that I've been talking about for a month on the floor to Senator Thune, Katie Britt, Lindsey Graham, James Lankford, anybody who had listened to me on the Republican side. I've said what I need in Virginia, with 320,000 federal employees who live in households that probably encompass nearly 650 or 700,000 residents in my state, I need a moratorium on mischief. My Virginians...
Okay, I wanted to note really quickly, I don't mean to interrupt Senator Tim Kaine, though, the Democrat from Virginia. He was saying he was focused too much on the Virginia elections before he could focus on anything else. But what I do want to note, we're waiting on Senator John Cornyn, the Republican from Texas. We're waiting on him to return to Capitol Hill. It is not clear here if he is... Excuse me, it was not clear whether if he is coming from Texas, where he's coming from. Are we waiting on him to get here from a flight? Or are we just waiting on him to come from a certain place? But that is why we are still waiting on this vote here. Let's go back to listening into this press conference from earlier from Senate Dems.
So we were amazed that you got that no rift guarantee in there. And I'm glad that we did, and we all worked so hard on it together, and I have huge respect for my colleagues who made this happen. Thanks.
Senator, you say you're fighting on the Affordable Care Act. What do you say to your colleagues who say this isn't a fight, this is a capitulation? You're agreeing to a vote on a bill that it almost certainly will not become law, and you're allowing that to happen.
Well, first of all, as long as the government shut down, the clear statement from Senator Thune and the Republican majority, and they control the Senate, the House, the White House, was we will not talk about health care with you. So there was no vote that we were going to get on the Affordable Care Act, premium tax credits. We have a guaranteed vote by a guaranteed date on a bill that we will write. Not that the Republicans will write, although I do think it's important for us to engage with them because we need a bipartisan bill that we know is going to get enacted to provide the relief that Americans need. And I think there's a commitment on the part of many of our colleagues to do that.
But there's no guarantee this will become law.
There was never a guarantee that it would become law.
Just to follow up on that, Senator, because we understand that this vote will happen, but a vote on extending the tax credits, it does not guarantee that it's going to happen. So how do you explain, though, to your constituents why it was worth it to put up this fight for so long when in the end you did not get your key demand?
Because it wasn't working. How long would it take to not get a response to say it isn't working? In other words, it's been 6 weeks. There's been the Republicans made it clear they weren't going to discuss the health care issue, the Affordable Care Act tax credits, until the shutdown was over. We tried to keep working that for 6 weeks. It didn't happen. The vote that we have is not a guarantee for sure. It's more of a guarantee. Here's the way I would put it. As I assessed it, there was zero chance of dealing with the ACA issue as long as the shutdown continued. Now, I don't know, 50-50? But there's a lot better chance now than there was this morning because nothing was happening and there was no evidence that another week or another 2 weeks or Thanksgiving or Christmas was suddenly the Republicans were to come to us and say, oh, we want to now talk about the ACA. If they weren't going to do it by now, what's going to change in the next 2 weeks that's going to make them do it? And that was really the assessment. Again, I would say, right, as of this morning, there was a zero chance of having a work on the ACA. Now there's a measurable chance. Will it be everything that everybody wanted? No, because we need 60 votes. And so there's going to be a negotiation. But Republicans have already started saying, well, here, if you did this or did that, maybe we can get there. So I would take a reasonable chance against no chance every day. And the other piece is, and we didn't really emphasize this, there are 3 important appropriations bills in this that would lock in SNAP for the rest of the year at a very substantial rate. Plus other benefits, veterans funding is guaranteed if we get these 3 bills through. So there's a plus on that. And I think the odds are that we have a better chance of doing something about the ACA than we did not going into this. At some point, you have to decide, what is the best strategic step forward. And we believe that the evidence is that what we were doing wasn't working, and therefore, let's try something else.
The real question is, why would a president of the United States pit hungry children against sick children? And that is what President Trump has done. I mean, this is outrageous. We can't reach agreement on government funding, so the government shuts down, and even though the law is clear that he could fund SNAP benefits during the shutdown, he did not. And then he also said, and by the way, I don't really care if people's health insurance premiums get so high they can't afford their care. That's on Donald Trump. My vote today was to do 2 things, both equally morally important and imperative. One is to make sure that the government is functioning so that our kids eat, so that our elderly citizens eat, so that our air traffic controllers can get some sleep and earn money, get paid while they are working, so that our veterans are protected, and continue the fight to a realistic platform to get the premium tax cuts done. And if that is not successful, then shame on the Republican Party and shame on Donald Trump. But the American people will see who stands with them on health care and who does not. And that will be the platform of the next stage of the fight. I hope we can find bipartisan agreement on an extension of those premium tax credits. In New Hampshire, couples who are 60 years old or so earning $85,000 a year are seeing like a $15,000 increase in their insurance premiums. This has to get fixed. And we have about a month to do it before the harm gets to be irreparable. And again, if the Republicans can't come to the table and do something reasonable on this and make sure that people can afford their health care and that the whole private commercial market also doesn't see skyrocketing increases, then shame on them.
Senator Shin, what do you say to the millions of Americans who are already in the Obamacare exchanges, seeing premiums skyrocketed, who were hoping because of what you all said that they would get answers on what their premiums would be now, but have to wait weeks longer since you've decided to open the government without immediate action on the subsidies?
Well, as Senator Hassan said so
Okay.
well.
We're going to dip out for just a second and take you guys back over live to the Senate where we are continuing to watch a vote occurring to end the government shutdown. As we were updating you guys earlier, we were awaiting Senator John Cornyn, the Republican from Texas, to make the final yes vote, making the final vote 60-40. That is what our sources are reporting. We are waiting for that to come about. When it does, we will bring you more coverage. For now, a quick break. When we return, more insight into this all as we continue to wait for the final vote on this continuing resolution, which would likely make it to pass. You're watching a Brooklyn News Special Report. Welcome back into Brooklyn News' live coverage and continuing extended coverage. We've now been on the air for about 2 hours, 18 minutes, 20 plus seconds here as the Senate continues its vote to fund the government. We are waiting on Senator John Cornyn to cast his vote. When he does, he'll likely be the 60th yes vote passing this bill. We are waiting on that to occur. When it does, the bill will pass, go forward, go to the House. Then, when the House passes it, if they choose, depending on what the votes are, if they do pass it, once it's passed, again, if it's passed, it will go to the president's desk for him to sign. You have been watching kind of extended coverage on this all. There's so much to follow, and we hope that you guys have kind of gotten what you wanted out of our coverage throughout the last little bit, because I know it has been extended long, but we have been breaking down everything throughout the last little bit here. So again, waiting on Senator John Cornyn. He was returning. Here's Politico's reporting. I'll just read it directly to you. It says, quote, Republicans are waiting for Senator John Cornyn of Texas to return to the Capitol. In the meantime, to return to the Capitol, where is he returning from? Texas? Where's he returning from, guys? I don't know. That is a good question to pose, and we'll be waiting on that we are going to conclude our coverage here for now. Again, he is likely to pass this. Likely, I want to use that language, don't want to assume anything, but waiting for Senator John Cornyn to return to the Capitol. Once he does, he will likely be the fourth yes vote making this pass. We want to thank all of you guys for tuning in throughout the last little bit. It has been quite lengthy time that we have been on the air. That will do it for this Brooklyn News special report. Thank you guys again for watching. Have a great rest of your night, you guys.